All right, if we were to sit down and have a cup of coffee today and continue this conversation around leadership and the heart of a leader, we definitely would have to talk about honesty. And honesty can be defined in many different ways. In its simplest form, some people say, hey, it's just telling the truth, the whole truth. Some say it's who you are when no one is looking. And both of those are true. Um, but when I think about honesty, I think about this story that is from a resource called Chop Wood, Carry Water that we read here on our leadership team. And it's about a young builder named, or a wise builder named Koda, who had a great reputation for building some of the finest homes in all of Tokyo. His work became world famous due to the dedication to the process, his willingness to be great at his craft, his relentless devotion to continuous learning, um, and even late in his career. But one day he decided, hey, I'm getting older. I'm growing tired of building other people's homes. It's probably time for me to just quit. And after 30 years of building homes, he wanted to travel, spend time with his grandkids. So he approached his boss to turn in his 2 week notice. But his boss said, hey, Koda, we're forever indebted to you for the magnificent work that you've done at our company. And we're grateful for you for working for us so long. We just have one more favor. And Koda's thinking, oh, I just want to get out of here. And his boss says, could you just please build one more house? It's an important house for a very important client, and everyone in the company agreed that it needs your magic touch. So reluctantly, he went to his boss, or his wife, which I guess is truly his boss. He went to his wife and asked, "Hey, can I do this one last project for my boss?" And before we retire, to postpone our retirement. So he said yes to his boss. And while Koda agreed with his head to build this house, his heart was no longer in it. He'd always been great with being hands on, selecting the finest materials, and making sure he was diligent in the process. But this house was different. He viewed it more as an obligation than an opportunity. The house was up to code, but things started to slip through the cracks. And it was obvious after building it that it didn't really have the wow factor that Koda's work was known for. He knew in his heart that this was far from his best work, but he was over it and ready to move on to the next phase in life. He went to his boss and he said, I did what I asked you to do. Now I want your blessing to retire. And his boss said, Koda, just one more thing. Koda's thinking, I thought that was it. But his boss reached into his desk and pulled out a black box with a ribbon, and he pulled it out, and Koda began to open it. And his boss said, we're so grateful for you. This gift is a token of our appreciation. And you guessed it. What was in that box was shiny new keys. And his boss said, the house is yours. You deserve it. Koda's heart obviously immediately sank because he knew what was inside that house. And he knew he didn't use the finest materials. He didn't oversee every detail, but it was too late. The house had been built. And the truth is, you are building your own house. You're building your reputation by the way that you live your life. And a huge part of that is honesty. And you're going to have the opportunity to look back on your life as you grow a little older, just like Koda. And you could either say, wow, I did my finest work, or man, it's too late. I lived a career or a life that was not honest. So what does that mean in the restaurant? When we think about, hey, what does honesty look like? I think probably 4 buckets that are really easy to define on, hey, am I being honest? The first one is with time. As I pay you every 2 weeks, when you get a paycheck, I pay you 100% of what you punch in on. And I think you could ask yourself at the end of those 2 weeks, am I giving 100% for what Paul paid me for? And that's an honesty thing. That's something that I'm not checking. So that means when you clock in, are you consistently engaged in the business, or are you just kind of off and talking? That's up to you. That's something that you get to choose. A second one, I would say, is food. We serve a ton of guests. There's a lot of food that goes through the chute. We're not over your shoulder looking to say, hey, is every food or every piece of food that you eat, is it being rang in? My hope would be that you do, because everything has a price and a cost, and I pay for that. So, as to be a steward and an extension of me, I want you to be honest about the food. We have food policies that are very generous, and we would ask that you would abide by those. And not only that you would abide by those, but you would enforce those. The third thing is money. It's a bucket. There's tens of thousands of dollars that come through this organization every day, and we're entrusting you to be honest with how that money is spent. And the last one that I want you to be honest is about policies. Every team member signs policies or signs off that they're going to obey, and not just with their mouth or with their head, but with their heart. So whether it's fingernails or grooming or uniform or just not gossiping, those are all policies that I ask you to be honest and observing and upholding as a standard keeper. So, a couple questions today. Why do you feel like honesty is so important in our organization? And how did the story, secondly, of Coda impact you? What stood out to you? Proverbs 22:1, a great proverb, says a great name or a good name is to be chosen rather than riches. So when I'm looking for the heart of a leader, I hope you'll choose to be honest.